Yep, right here in town. She's at 4040 64th Street, apartment 7.
But Lynn, honey, why can't you tell your father? Certainly there's nothing wrong with being married and having a baby.
You don't know my father. You see, my husband's an artist, and a good one, too. But father doesn't think a man's a man unless he's an oil man.
But Lynn, he's got to know sooner or later.
You don't understand, Margie. It'd spoil everything if he found out now. Dick's been working for months on the murals for the Texas Memorial. He's down there now. But father's on the board of directors, and if he finds out about us, he'll be so furious he'll ruin Dick's chances.
Well, maybe if he saw the baby and all, he'd feel different.
I don't dare tell him. I only hope your father doesn't give us away.
Oh, don't worry about that. I can handle him.
Thanks, Margie. If Dick wins first prize, then we'll face father on our own 2 feet. I mean 4 feet. I guess I mean 6 feet.
I'll never be able to thank all right enough for finding my little girl for me. I'm so glad I found you. Let me have a look at you. Well,
Oh. This is my father, Margie. This is Margie Jones, a friend of mine.
well, hello, Mrs. Jones.
Hi, Mr. Haley.
I don't mean to be rude, but I'd like to talk to Lynn alone.
Oh, of course I understand. I was just leaving anyway. Bye.
Well, don't leave your baby.
Margie's a little absent-minded. Only for a day or two, thanks, honey. And this time, don't tell your father anything. Please, Margie, it'd ruin everything. Don't tell anybody whose baby it is.
We're not going to ruin anything, are we?
Afternoon is all right.
Hello, Charlie. Did you have a nice vacation?
Just fine. Did anything happen around here?
Is Mrs. Odette in?
I think so.
Charlie, this isn't what it looks like.
Well, what is it? This time of day.
Well, it isn't.
Sounds like a baby, too.
Well, I hope so too. I hope you enjoy it.
Oh yeah.
With the cedar again.
Well, I'd say this is an opportunity that I want to miss for all the way. I've been a fan of Brooks for years.
Thank you so much.
I was on my little party when I was on TV.
Thank you.
We she's just been, every so often said, somebody.
Yeah, I didn't know it.
I didn't realize all of the other ones. Because he keeps coming from me.
Oh, really? I'll be darned. It's been a while then. Oh, I see what you mean. I'm slow.
Excuse me. When you were playing Little Margie,
Oh, really?
Jean Harley,
Oh, for heaven's sake.
do you remember? I used to come out and watch her. I thought you might remember her because
Yeah.
she was the
God only knows how
secretary.
many.
Cut again. This is for Ray, our film man, who did all the film editing for us and everything.
He told me 3 words that basically brought me out of a real depth. going through a
Here we go.
How's your hand holding up? Okay.
Well, I think
You think you'll survive? Okay.
Well, this is very personal.
talk to him. I said, George, I've got to talk to somebody else. I'm going to tell you 3 words.
Your name? First name? Marie.
Marie.
Okay.
Gail, excuse me. Didn't you have a Gail Storm show too?
Yeah, well, she was a cruise director.
Cruise director, that's the one I was remembering
That's
also.
it.
I says, there's
I actually did more of those than I did Margie's. Yeah.
I always enjoyed them.
I did too. I enjoyed those particularly.
Better be, huh?
Thank you.
Run, write out your name.
Okay. Then. You want this just two or just
To Trish. You gotta go with my name. I love your dress. Real pretty. And I loved your show. Two books. You know, of course. She has been my inspiration. She's like, you understood. My husband says he'd recognize your voice. Thank you.
Well, that's a giveaway time.
Good evening.
It's two for
Pleasure
the
to
price
meet
of
you.
one.
Well, actually, this one. If you would do that for Dave Madison.
I'll just do Dave. Okay. Is that
Okay.
right?
I even say my name again, can we have a round of applause for the Mickey Greco Quartet and the Summer Tracy? Once again, my name is Jeff Oldfather. I'm the anchor for KOLD News Center 13. I'm honored to be here. Catherine Genders approached me some time ago and asked me to be here because she found out I had way back in the past some theater experience, and there are many who might argue that in my job right now I still have theater experience. But basically what I do is my daughter says I talk a lot. That's another reason I'm here tonight. We welcome you to the first annual Celebrity Banquet presented by Simon Peter Passion Play at Tucson. I hope you've enjoyed your dinner. Of course, if you're not finished, please continue and we'll move on with our program for the evening. A couple of brief announcements first. In about half an hour, we'll probably have a camera crew setting up somewhere in the back corner, either corner here. There'll be some lights and some noise, and I apologize ahead of time for the distraction, but we're going to be doing some live interviews at 10 o'clock to try and promote why we're all here tonight. So a little patience at that point. To begin our program, I would first like to present you with the playwright, founder, and executive director of Simon Peter, Catherine Genders.
On behalf of Simon Peter. I know that you're all very anxious to meet Gail Storm, and you will be doing so very shortly. But I would like at this time to take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Storm to this event tonight, to thank her for coming, and I'd also like to welcome her husband, Mr. Paul Masterson, who has accompanied her here to Tucson this evening. Welcome. To share a very brief history with you of the beginning of Simon Peter. But I first want to say to you that I feel very, very privileged to have been used by our Lord and our Creator to work full-time to spread the story of Jesus Christ in such a unique way. I have to tell you that Simon Peter truly has been God's work and his idea from the beginning, and I feel that to him first must go all the credit for this work. When he first put on my heart to do this play, the very, very first months were very unusual. At first, even before the script was written, even before I started writing the script, I could see all of the scenes in my mind's eye in perfect detail. I knew exactly what the scenes were going to look like. And when I did start to write the script, I had, by my typewriter, only a list of my favorite scriptures and Bible stories that I knew I would have to somehow work into a stage play. And I wrote the scenes out of sequence, and I was so amazed to find when I was done that all of these scenes put in order fit together like a giant puzzle. And I think that was the first time that I really realized that God was very much involved in this work and that this was by his hand. The following year and a half that it took to prepare for the first pageant in 1979 was an incredible year and a half of a lot of very, very hard work and many miracles, many open doors, donations of lumber and hardware and fabrics and all of the things that it took to get the show off the ground the first year. And Simon Peter has grown tremendously since 1979. I must admit to you that I had no idea that this play would be so popular in this community and that it would grow so fast. I struggled very, very hard in the beginning to get it going, and I have struggled to keep it going and to keep it admission-free, which I thank God that for 13 years I have been able to keep it free. and keep it going. I think from the very, very beginning, before the script was even written, I had only really two major goals, and those two goals remain to this day. The first goal was that Simon Peter would be an annual tradition in this community to spread the word of Jesus Christ, and I hoped and still hope that many, many people who might not attend church might at least go to the theater, and in the process of being entertained, might be filled with the hope of a loving Redeemer who could change their lives. That's my first goal. And the second goal is that Simon Peter would be, and could be, continue to be, admission-free. If we take this show to other cities, which we are trying very hard to do at this time, then we probably will have to charge admission out of necessity. But as long as this play is in Tucson, which is its birthplace, and Tucson has been so receptive of this ministry, then I feel in my heart that the Lord would have us keep it free. I could just write a book about the letters and the calls and the people that have come up to me in person and cheerfully thanked me for keeping this at no charge because they were, excuse me, either on welfare or on Social Security or maybe had 8 or 10 children and could never have afforded to come to the play if it were not free. And these people have told me that their lives have been changed, so many lives. And that's very precious to me. So that's why I do continue to struggle to keep it free. And it has not been easy. It makes it harder for me personally because then it's up to me to get the funding for the show. And it's also hard because we cannot get any kind of grants. We cannot get grants from city or state or national governments because the show is about Jesus Christ. And so everything that we do is just through the love of the people who love the show. I believe that this play is a work of God, and if it is, He will stand behind it. And He will do so by working through His people to keep it going. I can only hope that this play has somehow touched each and every one of you here tonight in a very personal way, and that in your heart you believe that it should continue to be. I thank you so much for coming out this evening on behalf of Simon Peter. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Catherine. Obviously, one of the gratifying things is to see so many people here tonight, and we were commenting about that during dinner. That is, it's wonderful. At this point, I want to introduce someone who's very well known in Tucson. He's played the role of Simon Peter for 12 years, has acted in major roles with the Southern Arizona Light Opera Company, Gaslight Theater, and the Arizona Theater Company. Amateur golf champion, winning the state, city, and county amateur titles several times. He is the director of drama at Catalina High School and will be starring in Pirates of Penzance in the role of the Pirate King with the Southern Arizona Light Opera Company. That will be November 1st through the 11th. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you the one and only Simon Peter, Mr. Armand Bertadi.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you, Kathy, for inviting me to entertain you this evening. I would like to sing a song for you tonight that is very special because I think it reminds us of how proud we should be to be Americans. This song is especially poignant because of these troubled times in which we live. And it is especially important to me because what is America to me, the house I live in, is especially important because my grandparents, God rest their souls, who were not born in this country, saw to it that their children and their grandchildren would. What is America to me? A name the worker by my side, the little town or city where my people lived and died. The howdy and the handshake, yeah, of feeling free, and the right to speak your mind out. That's America to me. The things I see about me, the big things and small, the little corner newsstand or the house a mile tall, the wedding and the churchyard, the laughter and the tears, and the dream that's been a-growing for more than 200 years. The town I live in, the street, the house, the room, the pavement of the city, or a garden all in bloom. The church, the school, the clubhouse, a million lights I see, but especially the people. Yes, especially the people. That's America to me.
I'm entertaining, thank you so much. I'm just filled between the events that you are really here for tonight, and we've all been waiting for this moment. Who among all of you out there can forget the wonderful episodes of My Little Margie? When my co-workers and friends found out I would be hosting tonight, I only had about 200 or 300 requests to get autographs. Would you like to refresh your memory? I think most of us would. Before we present Miss Storm tonight, we thought you would enjoy seeing a few minutes of one of those delightful shows. I'm going to get out of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, the unforgettable My Little Margie.
It's a great pleasure to be here and to be with you and share this exciting and this exciting event of anticipating the 13th annual Simon Peter production. And I want to thank each of you for being here and for giving your financial and your spiritual support to this beautiful and inspiring presentation. Now, you probably think I'm here to make a speech, like it seems to indicate in the program. Well, I don't make speeches. I tried, and I found out that I had a tendency to start a sentence in the middle and go both ways. And you can't come out even that way, so I had to just give that sort of thing up. So what I'm going to do this evening is just share with you some of my experiences as best I can. And actually, in sharing my experiences, I guess what I really want to say is share my blessings, because God has heaped blessing after blessing, just showers of blessings on me all my life. And I just live in joy and wonder of it. Not that there's never been anything bad, but even those things have always turned out to be blessings as well. And I want to redirect your attention to my husband, who was introduced before. We've only been married 2.5 years, and I had a wonderful marriage and raised 4 children before I ever met Paul Masterson. And I felt I would have been pretty greedy if I had asked God to give me another fine and beautiful marriage. But he did it anyway, whether I was greedy or not. And so I just want to say, to point out to you again, my husband, Paul Masterson. He's my latest and greatest blessing. And now that I brought you up to date, I think if we could have like a hot flashback and go back to where I sort of began. I started out in, well, actually I was born in Bloomington, Texas, but I left there, my parents left there when I was 6 months old, and I didn't pay attention, so I never have seen that place. But I grew up in Houston, and I was the 5th child, and I was the baby. Of course, if you're the 5th and there are only 5, that makes you the baby. And my father died when I was 13 months old, so I didn't know him any better than I knew Bloomington. But my mother, well, she didn't take all the blame herself, but she named me. I thought you should know what the name of the person who's speaking with you. It's Josephine Oasa, which means bluebird in Indian, which I'm not. Cottle. And I always had to spell it, C-O-T-T-L-E. And I found out it was my oldest sister who named me that because she had friends named those names, and so my mother was tired, I guess, and that's where I ended up. I just didn't want you to think a mother would name her daughter Gail Storm. That's unless you expect her to grow up to be a stripper or something of that nature. Anyway, I was still in high school in Houston, Texas, and I'd always been interested in drama and declamation. I don't think they have those anymore, but they had declamation contests then and things of that nature. But never, ever would I have aspired or even dreamed of growing up to become an actress, because with my mother taking in sewing to raise her family, and we never had any money. I never felt poor, but we never had any money. And so I couldn't take lessons, dancing lessons or singing lessons or things like that, like little girls would like. And I never felt very deprived because I had lots of other things that made everything just fine in spite of that. And so I being involved in dramatics, there was a contest that came to town. A contest called Jesse Lasky's Gateway to Hollywood. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that. It's been so long by now, but he toured the United States, Jesse Lasky did, with this contest, and a lot of publicity and everything. And he selected a boy and a girl from each state to bring, I should say, to Hollywood, California, to compete in the radio finals of this contest. It was I wouldn't even have entered the contest. I wouldn't have had that much confidence, except I had 2 teachers in school who said, "You've got to enter that contest." So they taught me into it, and I went in with no expectations, really. Excitement, but no expectations. And I won in Houston, and so I was brought out. My mother and I went to Hollywood, and we were out there. I guess the contest was a big contest, big radio contest, and it was sponsored by the Wrigley Company. And they had guest stars, and it was at prime time every Sunday. And it was really a big show and a thrilling, exciting experience. My mother kept telling me, "Remember, this is just something you're going to enjoy, and then we'll go back home." Well, I really did enjoy it, but I never expected to win it. And they'd have the show would have big stars in it that would work with the contestants, and they had special writers for it. And it was really many contests when you may win a contest, but you don't win anything. And this was a marvelous contest because because not only have they seen to it that the winners and whoever won, also that's where I got the name. Whoever won the girl was Gail Storm, and whoever won the boy was Terry Belmont. And the value of that was that every Sunday they would promote these names. That's why they had them picked out in advance, and you got it whether it suited you or not. And not only did you win the names, but you won 7-year contracts with RKO Studios. And they couldn't drop your option because the 7-year contract always comes with 6-month options. But they couldn't drop your option unless they had used you in a good part in a picture. And I thought that was really neat and really fair. And so I started out at RKO, and I had to go to school. I graduated from RKO High. And that was a class of about 3.5 people. And the first picture I did was called Tom Brown's School Days. And I played a 10-year-old girl, which I wasn't since I was graduating from high school. I wasn't that bright, Mike. And so I had this part, and they even used me in another picture. And then at the end of 6 months, they called me in and dropped my option. They suggested that I either go back to Houston or marry that nice young man, the one that I married, that I won the contest with. And I was planning to do that anyway, so they didn't need to tell me. But that was pretty crushing to have your option dropped. They kept him. In fact, they kept him for a 7-year contract practically. But they dropped me, and even though I was crushed, it was the best thing that could possibly have happened to me because I went out and started to do really quick pictures. I did Independence, they're called. I did some westerns. I did all kinds of things, and then I was put under contract by a little studio called Monogram Studio, which was just great. By that time, I was married, and I was getting ready to start having our family. And being at Monogram Studios was just great because I would do a picture, and they did the fastest pictures you have ever heard of in your life. They also did some pretty good ones too, but they did 6-day pictures. And I'll never forget one that was a 6-day picture, and we never finished it. But they stopped it anyway and released it. I always wondered how it seemed, you know. I never did see it, but I always wondered about that, how it came out. The main thing was to get it out and let people see it, regardless of what was in it. So, anyway, then I don't want to get my life all mixed up here, so I'll put my glasses on and make sure I can find out where I am. So I spent my time making all these little quick pictures, which was terrific training for television because you work so fast that you're prepared as far as any of your technical things that you need to know. You're prepared for work in television, which we didn't have at that time yet, but it was coming along. And so television came along, and I had no idea whether that would be something that would be right for me. But when my career was at a really pretty low ebb as far as my work was going, and I think I had made a long prayer to God and told him that I figured that he must mean that this was the end of my career and I just had my family now, and that was fine, and I was going to let go of all of any struggling or anything like that. And as soon as I let go of it, then the phone rang, and Hal Roach Jr., who was a producer of My Little Margie, called me, and usually they call your agent. But I never knew why, but for some reason he called me and he said that he had this pilot film called My Little Margie, and he had Charlie Farrell, and I'd never met the man. And I really hadn't done very much comedy. I never quite knew why he happened to select me. But he asked me if I'd come in and talk to them and then let them look at me and then pick up the script. And I did that, and I took the script. They were very nice, and they had the pilot film they thought all sold already. Before it was started, and I took it home and I read it, and I felt like I had my nerve, but I didn't think that the relationship between Margie and the father was really what it should be. It just wasn't as pleasant as I felt like it. It just didn't feel right to me. So I called back and I said that I read it, and I told him how I felt about it and appreciated him asking me, and thanked him very much. I never expected to hear from him again. And in 2 weeks, he called and said that they had thought over the things I'd mentioned, and they thought there was something to that, and they had rewritten the script, and when I come in. So I went in, got the script, and it was just great. I just loved it. And so I said yes, and we started in on it, and it was interesting because it was supposed to have everything that was supposed to be the kiss of death for a series. We were the summer replacement for I Love Lucy, and I Love Lucy was beautifully established, and everybody loved it. And it's hard to go in, and people don't necessarily accept that when some substitute is put in. So that was everybody said, well, it'll never work because of that. And then we didn't have the 13 weeks that we had hoped to have. We only had 9 weeks, and that was supposed to be the kiss of death too. And then when the critics saw it, they did not give it good reviews. They were kind to me, but they weren't very kind to the pilot film. And so it ended up that finally the critics ended up saying, nobody liked it but the people. that was just about the way it was too. And Margie was just a really joyful experience. It was hard work. But the people were just, Charlie Farrell was it's hard for me to put him in past tense. He just recently passed away. But he is the dearest, most considerate man in the whole world. I always felt older than he was because he has such a boyish, eager quality about him, and he was just great. And if any of you remember the little old lady who lived across the hall, you didn't see her, any of her in this episode, but her name was Mrs. Odette, and many people remember her very fondly. And she was a fascinating person. She was like 65 before she ever started the show business. And she came from a very cultural background. And all of this was, and they gave her very jazzy lines to say, and she would come on the set, and she would wait until I had a minute, and she'd come over with her script, and she'd say, my dear, what does this mean? So I'd explain what her whatever they were, lines were, and then her face would just light up. She was like an ingenue. She was such a joy to work with and to be with. And another little thing about Margie was, and giving you little insights into it, you may not have been aware of it, but we used an awful lot of animals. And I love animals up to a point. But they're not easy to work with at all. And I had a couple of experiences that, well, one was a real turn-off. They had this chimp who are supposed to only work a chimp up until he's a certain age. And then he's too strong, evidently, for the trainer to allow to work with anybody else. That's my rough understanding of it. And this chimp I carried him around on my hip like you would a baby. And he was pretty big and pretty heavy, and he didn't like anybody very much. And I was scared of him. And he would wait, and he would watch his trainer. He was smarter than I was too, and I didn't like that. And he'd watch his trainer, and when his trainer wasn't looking, he'd have his arm around my neck, and he'd reach and he'd start pulling the hair on the back of my neck. And then he'd stop, and I'd tell on him, like a kid saying, he's pulling the hair on the back of my neck. And when he got tired of that, he would pinch under my arm. and he just really was kind of a frightening animal to work with. As a matter of fact, I had good reason to believe that, as it turned out, because the next series he did was on that lot. He did an episode in the life of Riley, and he bit a little boy that he was working with. And it was my fears. I'm just trying to give you a basic reason for my fears. But ostriches are hard. They're not really pleasant things to be around. And seals are fine, but it all gets to, and a horse in the dining room is a lot. And then I had an episode with a baby chimp that was just adorable. And I was supposed to lead him off a train. And had him, of course, I only carry him on my hip, had him that way too. And he was the sweetest little thing you ever saw, only they hadn't rehearsed the steam from the train, it comes out when the train stops. So we had rehearsed coming off the train, and everything was just dandy. All I had to do was carry him. We come off the train, and that steam goes, and I I felt the warmest, wettest one of those memorable things. By the way, that was one of the more endearing things. But it got to be a sort of a thing, because those pictures were hard to do, because they were, whether you noticed it or not, they were very physical in many ways, which was fine. Except you work awfully hard and you're under an awful lot of pressure. And so I finally said, if they're going to write any more pictures of these episodes with animals in them, just write me out of those scenes. Don't include me in. I said, because I don't need that, one more thing like that for stress and pressure. And then they come up with a script with a boxing kangaroo. And kangaroos are a good size, they're not small at all, and they have these tails like that, which they whip around, you're told, and they had on boxing gloves and shorts and everything like that. And so they had this one scene that they said I had to be in, and I said, well, can't you do it of him and Freddie, and then let me, splice me in later? And they said, no, I had to do it. So they had the three of us in a three-shot, the kangaroo, and he was nervous. That kangaroo had worked the day before, and he was not happy at all with this picture. I don't know if he didn't like the part or what, but he was really jumpy. And they're quick, especially the ones that are trained to box. And so the director we'd start the scene, and the kangaroo would make one move, and I'd leap out of the shot, and I'd ruin the shot, of course. And the director tried to be patient. He said, I know he seems nervous, but he's not going to do anything. You don't have to worry. And I said, I'm sorry. So I did it again. The director's getting more and more, and I blew it again. And I did that about 4 times, which I don't usually do. And the director, who's very high-strung because those pictures went fast, and he was that way too. And so he was getting redder and redder and redder in the face. And he was always very good to me, but he was rather impatient with a lot of other actors. And so I could see that he was just about to blow his top. And I was so sorry, but I couldn't seem to control it. So finally he came in after I'd blown a shot, and he said, now look. He said, this kangaroo is not going to do anything. He can't possibly hurt you. You are ruining this. We've got to get this shot. And about that time, this kangaroo reached over and grabbed him by his shirt front and boxed him all the way. Oh, that was the most beautiful comedy. He knocked him down, but he didn't hurt him. I've never seen a look on a director's face like that before or since. So he said, set it up differently now. But anyway, that was one of the many little things that I so fondly remember about Margie. Then when I finished the Margie series, it was just great, because doing television, at that point you didn't realize that the power and the wide scope of what television can do for you. And by golly, when I had a year in between the 2 series that I did, and that year I got to do guest spots on all the big shows, and I even played Las Vegas, which was not my favorite thing to do, but I played Vegas, and I did stage work, which I had never done before, because I started out illegitimately, as far as a career goes, mine had been illegitimate, and I had never been on a stage. And so that was the biggest treat, because I got to do plays that were beautifully written, and I got to do musicals that were just a joy. And I just many people who are very accustomed and very experienced and professional and with a camera, in front of a camera, can't adapt to stage work, because it's a completely different sort of projection of your work. But I just loved it, and I felt like that was just the greatest treat in the whole world. And so I got to do that, and it was while I was doing that I also got my Doc Record contract. I had started, I didn't mention it, but I had never had any really singing training or anything like that, but when I was at Monogram and they were doing these fast pictures, they started doing musicals, and they came over to me and asked me one day if I could sing. And I said, I'll try. And so I started singing at Monogram, and I got experience in a little dancing and stuff like that, which was keen. So anyway, I got to utilize that in playing Vegas and in doing the musical shows that I enjoyed so very much. And then, after a year of that, I had said I'll never do another series because Margie, that kind of work is just too demanding, and I have my family and everything, and so I said that I wouldn't unless it was something I couldn't possibly resist. So this man who was a writer, had been a writer on Margie, called me up and he said, I have an idea for a series, and I said, I don't want to do one. And he said, I know, but just listen to this one. And I said, well, you have a script? And he said, no. He said, all I want to do is show you one thing. So he came and he brought with him a Time magazine. And he just turned it over, and on the back of Time magazine was this beautiful ad for a cruise ship. And it said something to the effect that your social director will see to it that you have a perfectly marvelous time, etc., etc., etc. And I thought, wow, that is the greatest idea, because that with a cruise ship, you could go anywhere, you could have any kind of people that you wanted. It was a beautiful, I thought, wide format. As it turned out with Love Boat, it did do fairly well, didn't it? Anyway, that was the beginning of the Gale Storm show, Old Susanna. And we started that after this year in between. And the only little hitch in starting that, it was really exciting because we started doing the pilot film. And every third episode, I didn't say this, every third episode of the second series was a musical. And I loved that because I could get to pre-record and have choreography. Give me 2 boys or 4 boys and I could really dance. It takes that many, but I really can. So anyway, I did the musical, and in the pilot film, of course, they had a production number, and I was in the middle of the production number, and the Nestle company, which was a tremendous, of course, is a tremendous company. They had already bought it when it was only in its first day of shooting, which is just a big coup. You know, the producer was just beside himself with joy, and of course I was too. Only when I was doing the dance number, and the boys did a horizontal lift with me, and when they put me down, I was so dizzy I couldn't, and I didn't get dizzy ordinarily. I couldn't figure out what in the world was wrong with me. Well, I'll tell you what in the world was wrong with me. I was pregnant. Now, if you think that's not, if you ever want to see a producer die without really doing anything but sitting at a table, under those circumstances, with the show all sold and everything, to have me come to him and tell him that I was going to have a baby. And he said, oh, it's all over. And I said, no. I said, I've talked to the doctor, and I'm a very healthy, hale person, and I don't ever seem to threaten. I'd had 3 children, and I said, I don't seem to threaten to miscarry or anything. And the doctor said it's perfectly all right. And I said, I'll work real hard and do everything I can to get enough episodes filmed so that they wouldn't have to have any reruns. And he said, well, we shouldn't tell a sponsor. I said, yeah, we have to tell a sponsor. And I said, I don't know how they'll react, but we have to tell them. So we did. They were just great. They said, okay, they'd go along with it. And so I did the first, I worked on those episodes, and I lost count, but I did them until I was 7 months pregnant. And fortunately, the work was so hard that I never gained any weight except baby. That's why my daughter is named Susanna. And so anyway, let me see, where did I go from there? I have to check myself back out. I think I've just about done it to you by now. did you give me a signal? I begged that Don't tell anybody this but just us, but I have absolutely no sense of time whatsoever. That may have been noticeable right now, but I asked my husband, I said, if you don't stand on your chair and wave your arms when my time is up, I'll never speak to you again. I said, we've seen only, my husband and I saw a video of Simon Peter, but we sure want to see it, so we want to come back and visit you for that. And just wish you all the best of everything. God bless you, and he will, of course. And I love you.